Good night, and thank you for joining us. I am sitting here now with Julie Dzerowicz. She is the Member of Parliament representing the riding of Davenport. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight in our studio, Julie.
Obrigada, Jennifer. Boa noite. É prazer estar aqui com o Correio de Manhã, Canadá. Muito obrigada pelo convite. Desejo bom dia a todos os telespectadores.
Perfect. Now, it's no secret that Davenport has the highest percentage of ethnic Portuguese constituents of all the federal ridings in all of Canada. And so you have held this position of MP of Davenport for almost 2 years now. And so what has it been like representing such a large Portuguese community?
Well, it's been such a pleasure to be able to represent the largest Portuguese community in the country. I've visited all the casas. I've been to every single Portuguese event. There's been such a warm welcome from both the leadership and from the general population. And I feel very blessed that I get to represent the largest Portuguese community in the country.
And so how would you describe your relationship with the Portuguese community?
You know, I am the daughter of 2 immigrant parents. And so for me, when I meet many of the Portuguese at the doors, they remind me of my parents, they remind me of my families. The Portuguese are very hardworking people and they love their families, and very much reminds me of my family. My dad came here, my mom came here as an immigrant, and they both came here because they wanted a better life for their kids, and they both sacrificed very much so that myself, my sister, my brother, we could all reach our potential, go to school, and become the very best we can be. And so to me, I feel very much at home when I speak to a Portuguese family, and I think they see a little bit of myself in what they hope their kids will be, so it's been wonderful.
And so you've certainly been active when it comes to interacting with community members. Just recently, you were at Brazil Fest, as well as the Big on Bloor Festival. And so what do you think the value behind being present at these culture-driven events is?
Well, for me, I have a very big message for them. So our Prime Minister never stops saying that we are stronger as a country because of our diversity. So diversity of backgrounds, of cultures, of races, of opinions. And so the Portuguese and their culture and their history have added to the richness of the culture of this country, and so have the Brazilians. Brazilians have been in Canada far less time than the Portuguese, but for me, it's reminding them that it's important for us to celebrate their Brazilian culture, but it's also a way of us celebrating Canada in general. So that's what it was that when I went to Brazil Fest, I reminded them that you can be a proud Brazilian, but you can also be a proud Canadian, and there's no conflict with that. And indeed, this makes us a much richer country, and it's the same for the Portuguese. You know, we're very blessed. The Portuguese started coming in the 1950s, and then much more so in the 70s and 80s. And so now we're almost 500,000 in Canada. And the Portuguese they tell me this all the time, they're very proud to continue to celebrate the Portuguese culture, but also they're very proud Canadians. And so that's what I go and remind them about. And then I just love celebrating with them because it's always fun. The Portuguese love to party, and so do the Brazilians. And so I very much just enjoy taking part in the festivities.
And so you mentioned this sort of conflict between, I guess, toying with 2 identities. And so it's very much about striking a balance, is what you're saying, between that sort of those Portuguese or Brazilian roots as well as being a Canadian.
Well, and understanding that there's no conflict between the two. So you can go and be very proud to be Portuguese, continue to go to the Portuguese events, join the annual Dia de Portugal street festival that takes place every single year. But there's no conflict in doing that. That doesn't make you less of a Canadian. In fact, it makes you more of a Canadian.
Being a Member of Parliament representing Davenport, what would you say is the largest issue being faced by Portuguese constituents?
You know, the number one thing at the doors is people continue to talk to me about jobs and the economy. So in terms of jobs, as I mentioned to you before, there is, in my opinion, no stronger community that works harder than the Portuguese. So they want good paying jobs for themselves and for their kids. And so that continues to be top of mind for them. And when I say economy, I meet a lot of seniors, Portuguese seniors, who would say to me, Julie, we live in our homes, we've been living in the Davenport community for 30, 40 years, but it's increasingly very difficult for us to continue to afford to live here because of the increasing costs of living. And so they have asked me to look into how is it that we can create more senior facilities or seniors' homes where they can live independently, but not necessarily have to move out of the community, but it would be affordable for them to live on their fixed pension. So those are the main issues that I hear. And I would say the second big sort of issue I hear is about, I call it in the bucket of immigration. So I work very closely with a number of our unions, the construction unions primarily. They'll tell me that because our national government is spending $180 billion over the next 12 years to build out infrastructure, there's a great need for more skilled trades. And so I'm very much working at the national level with our Minister of Immigration, with our Minister of Employment, to say we desperately need more skilled trades to be able to fulfill all the infrastructure projects we want to do. So very much working on those two main issues right now.
Of course, and so when it comes to things like skilled trade, those certainly start at the education level. And so when it comes to sort of interacting youths, what sort of events have you been holding in order to be able to do that?
So, you know, that's a great question. A lot of families really care about their kids going to school, making sure that they also have a good start in life. When Prime Minister Justin Trudeau came into government, we came in October 2015, one of the first things he did was to double the funding and double the number of jobs that would be available for students during the summer, so between the ages of 16 and 24. And the reason he did that is we want to give the very best start in life for youth. And so in our riding, we probably have between 150 and 200 jobs for youth. And I held a summer barbecue earlier last week just to get a chance to say hello to the students, to have them meet with each other, a way to engage with them, and also just to hear how the program's going. Because I want to make sure that the program's working for them. It is giving them not only the experience that they're looking for, but also, giving them an ability to raise some money that can be put towards their education.
Of course. And so back onto this topic of immigration and what it sort of means to be a citizen. You've used the term path to citizenship a number of times throughout the years. And so what sort of does this ideal path to citizenship look like to you?
Yeah, that's another great question. You know, I was mentioning to you earlier that a lot of our unions are asking for more skilled trades. They would probably say to me as well that we actually in Canada have a number of people who already live here who have already the skills that we need. They've already been trained up. They had been here maybe on a work permit and would love to continue to work here. So for me, an ideal pathway to citizenship would be how is it that we can facilitate a way for those people who have some of the skills that we're looking for to be able to sort of move on the path to citizenship. They've already been contributing to the Canadian economy. They've already established themselves and their families. So how is it that we can actually help them move forward? The other thing I'd love to do is our immigration system in the previous administration was very complicated. It changed so many times. I'd love to simplify it so it's really easy for if there's a Portuguese family that wants to come or a European family that wants to come, that it's easy for them to understand how to actually apply and become a Canadian citizen. So, and I'd love that if we could actually offer our immigration services beyond just in English and French, I'd love to offer it in the top 10 or 15 languages that we have in this country, and I'd love if that could be also offered in Portuguese.
And so when it comes to sort of simplifying this process of citizenship, how exactly are you thinking of going about that? Is it in terms of perhaps tampering with the age or tampering with some of the tests when it comes to becoming a citizen? Yeah,
that's a great question. So there's a number of different ways that you can actually, one is you simplify the process. Two, One of the things actually that we've already done, and this is directly because Portuguese seniors have asked me for this, and it was something that I brought to our former Minister of Immigration, John McCallum. What happened is if a Portuguese was a permanent resident in Canada, if they wait until they were 55, they didn't have to write a language test to become a Canadian citizen. That changed in the previous administration to 65. And the Portuguese senior community asked our government to change it back. So I asked our government to do that, and that actually has now gone through. And as of this fall, we will now be moving it from 65 back to 55. So now we have a whole group of people that have lived here for a long period of time, already contributed to our great country. And so that will facilitate them becoming a Canadian citizen very quickly. And there was something else I was going to say, but now I've forgotten it. But maybe as we go on, I'll remember the point.
Sure, if anything comes up, you just let me know.
Thank you.
So when it comes to any kind of immigrant, be it Portuguese or any, I guess a large part of your mandate tends to be about making life easier.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's about making the process simpler. I am on the Citizenship and Immigration Committee, so we look at family reunification. Are we making it too difficult? What in the process can we actually simplify? Some people have complained about the fees, and we have, as a committee, we've actually made a recommendation to our minister to say if a family is actually applying, it's very onerous for them to apply, whether it's 500 or 700 for each one, can we actually have a family rate? So we're looking at each part of our system to say how can we simplify it, and how can we simplify the pathway to citizenship.
Of course. And so when looking at other events or community initiatives that may be coming up in the future, can you tell us a bit about what we can expect you to be involved with either this summer or throughout the year?
Oh, well, this summer I'm actually very excited to let you know that I will be going to Portugal. So I've already been to Lisboa and to Sintra, but because I have the casas of every single region of Portugal in my riding, and I go to all the cultural weeks, I personally want to go and visit each of the regions. So my plan is to go to Madeira, then to visit 3 of the Azorian Islands. So I'm planning on going to San Miguel, Terceira, and Pico. Then I'm going to fly to Porto, visit in the north Braga, Porto, and Viana do Castelo, then drive down to Lamego, Viseu, and then to Coimbra, and of course I have to, because my mother is very religious, and so I have to go to Fatima, and then of course I will see Nazaré, Peniche, and then I'll end up in Lisboa. So I have 30 days a month, and that's a very ambitious trip. So my ambition is try to do as many of those as possible, but that's currently my game plan, and I'll be leaving in mid-August and staying for a month.
You can certainly put that Portuguese to the test, huh?
I will, and I'll be practicing my Portuguese and hopefully speaking a little bit more Portuguese when I get back in September.
Of course, that's amazing. And so looking forward now, I mean, almost 2 years down and 2 to go.
Yeah.
What are some of your goals as MP moving forward?
Well, as soon as I get back, actually, part of the reason I'm actually not staying 5 weeks in Portugal is I'm working on a private members bill at the national level where we are going to make June National Portugal Month, and then also June 10th as National Portugal Day. So that's something I have to put into motion into September so that it comes into force by next year. And so I want to let all of your listeners know that they are all invited to Ottawa. We will do a very big party. This is next year will be the 3rd year that we will celebrate what we call Portugal Day on the Hill. It's a way for us to nationally celebrate with all politicians, so members of parliament, senators, and Portuguese communities from not only Ottawa, Montreal, but we also invite the Toronto community and anybody else who wants to come. But we celebrate the contributions of the Portuguese people and culture to Canada. So anyways, that's what my game plan is. And I'm not Portuguese. But I take my job very seriously in terms of representing the largest Portuguese community in the country. So very much I'm a champion for all Portuguese issues, and I'm on the forefront of being a voice for the Portuguese in Ottawa, as well as in the riding.
Now, if we could just get one final message for all of our Portuguese viewers out there today.
You know, the final message I would have is around education. I was invited to a barbecue a few weeks ago by one of our local Portuguese leaders, and I was sitting around, and many of them are now well into their 40s, and they would say to me that while they finished high school, most of them didn't go on to post-secondary education, but they've all started businesses. Their hard work ethic has actually made them go out to start their own businesses, and they've largely been very successful. And my message is that the world of work has now changed, and it's no longer that our kids cannot move on to post-secondary education. And when I say that, it doesn't need to be university, it could be a trade, but I would say move on to the trades, and even if you are in the trades, make sure that you keep your skills updated, because in the world that we're moving into, the only way that you will continue to be able to have good paying jobs is if you keep your skills upgraded, as well as you make sure that your kids or yourselves are constantly learning and constantly keeping up to date with the skills that are needed in the world of work today and tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today at Correio da Manhã, Canada. It was a pleasure speaking with you on behalf of everyone here at the studio.
Muito obrigada, mais uma vez, muito obrigada pelo convite de falar convosco aqui no Correio da Manhã, Canadá. Desejo a todos os telespectadores verão cheio de sol e felicidade.
Perfect. Thanks again, Julia.
Obrigada.
Thank you all for watching, and have a good night.